For most of the time, the asset allocation we are facing, basically, we talk about is risk and return trade-off, and we look at that to either maximize the expected utility or to satisfy the safety first goal. However, sometimes we are facing different clients. They have different type of demand, especially for the individual and financial planning. So here have a different approach about asset allocation is based on that investor's goal. Now, for instance, suppose we have an investor, an individual, wealthy investor, uh, had a plan. Say, well, what I like to do first is to have a 10-year time window that I can accumulate some capital to pay the children's education. Now, I just give an arbitrary number. Maybe this number would be too low. Say that is a $500,000. And since this child education is very important, so the client had very, very low tolerance, all right? So to tolerance the risk, so that you have to meet the goal. So in order to have that, so we set up some kind of probability of occurrence. So we say, what is there's demand from this client, and the probability of occurrence is a 90%. 90%, this have to happen. All right. This client had another goal. The second goal is to transfer his or her wealth to the next generation. Right. Transfer wealth to the next generation, to the daughter or son. And the time window again is 30 years. It's much longer, and the amount is $6 million. And of course, because it's a longer time window, and this basically is not a complete necessity, right, or the necessary need. Therefore, the probability of occurrence could be lower to 75% chance. This being the case, how do we find the asset or portfolio that can meet that client's goal? So how do we allocate them to different asset class or different portfolio or modules to meet that goals? So this approach is different than the risk and return or the utility maximization or the safety first goal rule. That's quite different. The parameter are different. So we are now looking at like standard deviation or volatility, but the two parameters are quite important is the time horizon and the probability of occurrence. All right, so we know that we have a time horizon 10 years, 30 years, and the corresponding probability of occurrence is 90% and 75%. So as a portfolio manager, this is our goal. We got to find the asset to allocate to the overall portfolio in order to meet the goal. So we're going to do here is that, all right, so we search for different type of product, and then we find three portfolio, and I will call module A, module B, and the module C. For these three portfolio, under the time window of 10 years and the 90% probability of occurrence, we calculate the expected return of each module. So we find out, for example, module A had a 3%, B had a 2.4%, and C had a negative 2.2%. So obviously, to meet the 10% 10-year 90% goal, module A is a choice, right? It's the best choice. Module C, of course, is a negative return on average. Therefore, it doesn't meet that time window and the probability of occurrence. Now, on the other side, we look at that 30 years and 75% probability. And then guess what? Module A is the worst one, where the previous worst case, in the 10 year 90% chance occurrence, module C become the best for the 30-year window and the 75% of occurrence, probability of occurrence. Therefore, it's very interesting to see that the comparison or the selection of asset classes is not purely based on the return and risk or the return of volatility. It's not really based on the utility function. It truly is based on what the goal that client is. Consequently, in our allocation, we have to allocate A, all right, the 8 to meet the 8 is 33%, all right, 3%. So we have to allocate a capital to meet a $500,000 need 10 years from now in order to pay the children's education. So we're going to put that money into module A. Then the question is how much you have to put it in. The answer is pretty straightforward in this case because it's only one lump sum payment in the future. So the today's investment must be the present value of that 3%, because 3% is the expected return or the required return, right? The expected return generated from module A to meet the required return that the client want for the case one, pay children's education. So we calculate the present value and it's equal to $372,047. That is the dollar investment into module A. By the same method, we are able to calculate the investment for module C. That is 1.331231 million. That is investment to meet the $6 million goal 30 years from now with 75% probability, because we put in module C, it's going to generate the required rate of return or the expected return of 5.2%. Therefore, you can see that very easy, right? So our recommendation to the client is that put $372,000 in module 8 and $1.33 million in module C. And then that way you're able to achieve the goal. This we call the goal-based asset allocation. Very interesting case. Please pay attention to it.